start. Okay, so thank you all for joining us this evening or afternoon if you're on the West Coast. My name is Madison Myrick. I'm the clinical director at Smile Therapy Services. As you know, Smile Therapy Services is a mental health organization in the Washington, D.C. area where we provide mental health services, therapeutic services for youth and adults. And so we are just happy to bring this webinar to you today with Dr. Adiola Mead. We're so excited to have her. She's going to be just talking to us about balanced nutrition and fueling your family for success. I do want to go a little bit into about Dr. Mead's background. I'm just really excited that we have her here today with us, just joining us and talking to our parents just about how to have a really balanced and healthy lifestyle. So Dr. Mead is a naturopathic doctor who helps patients surpass their health goals by improving energy levels, digestion, and mood using comprehensive assessments and self-care education to create measurable results. She lives in Seattle, Washington. So that's why you see it's sunny on her side, with her family, and is passionate about using natural medicine to improve mental and emotional, physical, and spiritual health, which I love that so much. Okay, so we're just really excited to have her join us and just really dive into what is balanced nutrition and what does that look like for our children and families. So I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Mead.
Thank you. Thank you, Madison. I'm really excited to be here with all of you today. And this is a topic that's really close to my heart because I am, I've been practicing now for 15 years and up and down the West Coast in Canada and the Canadian West Coast in BC, also in Seattle and in San Francisco. And I've always just had a passion for helping families because whether you're a working parent or you are just trying to keep your own self as healthy as possible and caring for elders or other people in your community, it's just so important to use the tools that we have to thrive on every level. So on this webinar today, we're going to be talking about how a balanced diet impacts mental, emotional, and physical health, how to plan balanced meals for each member of the family, and how to practice heart healthy habits as well, since February is American Heart Health Month. So a little bit about me. I'm a naturopathic physician. And for those of us who aren't familiar with naturopathic medicine, it is primary care medicine with a focus on non-drug therapy. So using diet and lifestyle, herbal medicine, nutrients, counseling as well to help people thrive on every level. So I do prescribe pharmaceuticals, but I very rarely have to because I find that the combination of natural modalities and natural methods and tools work very, very well to help people reach their health goals and maintain them long-term. I'm also a speaker. I've spoken on behalf of the American Heart Association and in corporations like Amazon and various universities as well. So this is a topic that I'm particularly passionate about. And I also consult with other corporate, companies. But most importantly, I am a wife and a mama of 3 little ones. I have a 7-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 16-month-old. So feeding my family is really at the top of my mind at all times. So we'll just dive right into what balanced nutrition is. So balanced nutrition is basically a combination of macronutrients and micronutrients. When you say macronutrients, these are like our big food groups. So carbohydrates or carbs, proteins, and lipids or fats. When you think about carbs, you think about it as a way to fuel your body that's fast. It's easy. It's like if you're building a fire, it's like the kindling that you throw in a fire just to get it going and moving it fast. So things like a banana or bread or candy or just anything that is sweet and has more of a sugar content, that is an important fuel. And our brains use mostly carbohydrates and sugar for fuel. So it's really important to have those in our diet. Next is protein. Protein are important, give you important building blocks for a lot of your immune system and your muscles. So you get those in nuts and seeds and meats and different sorts of dairy, things like that. So that's where you're going to get more of your protein. And then your fats are things like oils and like in avocados and things like that. Those are your big groups. And then you have your micronutrients. So more foods that will give you medicinal value. So vitamins and minerals, and also phytochemicals. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but aspects of your food that can also help you to prevent disease. So those are your two big groups. And in a balanced nutrition, you want a variety of those foods as part of your fuel for every single meal as much as possible. So you want protein sources, healthy fat sources, and vitamin mineral sources. So in this graphic here, you'll see sort of the proportions you want to have for those different types of foods. You want to have lots of vegetables and fruits and herbs and spices. So about half your plate wants to look about that much. So lots of variety. And then you want about a third of your plate, a quarter of your plate to be more of your proteins. So meats and eggs and seafoods and beans and seeds and things like that. And then another quarter of the plate to be more grains. So breads and other whole grains that way. And you want to limit as much as possible added sugars, added fats, and excess salt. And also on the side of your, fats and proteins, you have dairy beverages as well. So this is what your plate should generally look like for it to be a varied diet. But what's our motivation for having a varied diet? Like we said at the beginning, balanced nutrition affects your physical health, your mental health, and your emotional health. So how does it affect our physical health? So what we eat impacts our energy levels, right, and our strength. The more nutrient dense or the more nutrition we can get from a food, the more energy we're going to get from it. What we eat also impacts our digestion. If we're eating something that gives you a stomach ache, or you just know it doesn't sit right with you, that's going to affect how you feel physically for the rest of the day. And it also builds your immune system, right? Like our physical strength is a function of and is determined by how well our immune system is working. If you're feeling ill, you're not going to be feeling very strong. You're not going to have a lot of capacity. Your body chemistry as well. What we eat, what we choose to put in our mouths and put into our bodies affects how our body chemistry is composed. So when you go to the doctor and you get your blood drawn and they check your cholesterol, your blood sugar, your lipids, all those things, then we know that if you've been eating lots more fatty foods or lots more sugary foods, you're going to have higher cholesterol, you're going to have higher blood sugar, and it might make you more likely to be pre-diabetic or diabetic. So what we eat physically impacts our body chemistry and what our body is made up of. We are what we eat, right? And also our food affects our hormones. So that is how our metabolism is working, how our reproductive hormones work, and also how we manage stress. All those things are controlled by our hormonal system. And what we eat impacts that in really important ways because it gives us the building blocks to make all of those hormones and for them to be balanced. So how do we improve our physical health using our nutrition? So we want to eat a variety of whole unprocessed foods. So when you go to a grocery store, usually on the edges, right, is where we're going to find our most whole unprocessed foods, where you have the dairy, the fruits, the vegetables, things like that on the edges. And then in the middle, when we go down the aisles, is often where we have more processed foods, more boxed foods and things like that. So one important way for you to start to think about, navigating a grocery store is to try and shop as much as possible on the edges of the grocery store, because that's where we're going to have the most whole foods and less processed boxed foods. We want to pay attention to foods that upset the stomach or give you other symptoms. Sometimes people eat foods and they're like, oh, I have a headache right away, or I'm just so tired, or I feel like I'm not even digesting that at all. That's really important because so much of our health is derived from how our gut is balanced, right? So much of our immune system resides in the gut. So much of our hormonal system resides in the gut, our digestion. If you can't break foods down, you can't use it for energy. So really pay attention to which foods can give you an upset stomach or change your bowel habits, things like that, because it affects all the rest of your health too. Another tip is to not drink too much water with your meals, because when we drink just lots of water with our foods, it dilutes our stomach acid. So if you're supposed to use the stomach acid to break down all the foods that you're eating, you dilute it, you're not going to digest the foods as well, right? So the foods won't be as digested as well at the stomach level. And then as it goes through the rest of the digestive tract, it's also not digested as well. And you can end up with digestive symptoms or even just like a stomach ache. So it's important to maybe sip a little bit of water before or through your meals. And then once you've eaten a meal, wait half an hour to drink more of your water. And then, of course, you want to limit sugar and added sugar. And this will be a theme because sugar is such an enemy. Unfortunately, it tastes good on the tongue, but the rest of what it does in the body is not good. Any sugar that we take in, our body uses as quick energy, right? And our brain uses that energy right away. We use only sugar for the brain, but any that we take in excess, any that we don't end up using, ends up being stored as fat in the body. And then that can increase your cholesterol levels and impact your cardiovascular health and your heart health. So it's really important to limit sugar, especially when you read a label, if it says it has 14, 15 grams of added sugar, 30 grams of added sugar, that's just way too much and way more than we need. So those are the ways that balanced nutrition can affect our physical health and things that we can keep an eye out for to make sure that we're staying physically strong based on what we're choosing to eat. The next is balanced nutrition in our mental health. And this one is really important to me because my clinical focus is mental wellness and metabolic health, right? How the body and the mind work well together. And one thing that I see a lot is people who feel like their mental health suffers when they don't eat regularly. And often it's because they're experiencing hypoglycemia. That means that they eat something, maybe something that's higher in sugar. And for the first few minutes, their blood sugar is higher and it's raised and they have a little bit of a burst of energy. But what goes up must come down. So as the blood sugar comes down, they start to have symptoms. So they're cranky, they're agitated, it's hard to focus, or some of us get really, really busy. I know this happens to me sometimes. I'm just working, plugging along on things, and I forgot to eat breakfast. I forgot to have a snack. Now your blood sugar is really low. And then, we all know how we feel when we're like hungry or hangry, right? Like we're irritable, it's really hard to focus. You might be more tired. And these are symptoms that can also impact and make worse mental health issues, right? So if you're already feeling anxious or depressed and then your blood sugar goes low, it's going to make some of those symptoms much, much worse. The other thing is that what we eat impacts our brain chemistry, right? So the foods that we eat end up being building blocks to make neurotransmitters and other nutrients we need for our brains to work. So again, the brain uses only sugar for fuel. So we have to make sure that we're having enough, complex carbohydrates or carbs in our diet, but we need to couple it with those proteins and healthy fats so that we can have a balanced stream of energy, but also a balanced amount of brain chemistry. Most of our serotonin which is our well-being neurotransmitter or hormone in the brain, is made in the gut. So the things that we eat, the building blocks we take in, is going to determine how much of that we have in our body so that the brain can use it. This connection between the gut and the brain is something that we're learning more and more about. So it's really important to choose foods that are going to build those neurotransmitters, build the health of our nervous system in general, so that our mental health can stay balanced. So the best things you can do is make sure that you're eating protein. Protein will help balance out any excess sugar that we're taking. Omega-3s are some of my favorite mental health and brain health nutrients because our nervous system is made up of highways of different nerves, right? But surrounding these nerves is sort of like a fat, a sheath, like a covering. And when we take omega-3s, we keep that covering nice and healthy so that our brain can fire messages throughout the brain and throughout the body in a way that is smooth and healthy and helps us function. So omega-3s are really important, and you can get those in walnuts and cold water fish and things like that. Probiotics are some of my favorites as well for mental health. Because like we're saying, if the gut is where a lot of our immune system is, our digesting food, a lot of our neurotransmitters are produced there. We also have a lot of kind of bugs in our gut, right? Like our whole body is an environment of different microorganisms and guts. We have more microorganisms and bugs than we have human DNA. So it's really important to make sure that we're feeding beneficial bacteria and starving and not, contributing to non-beneficial bacteria, because a lot of these bacteria and microbes, they help all of our systems work well together. So probiotics, taking in probiotics in foods like sauerkraut and pickles and like plain or Greek yogurt, it's a really important way to make sure that you are replenishing your body's store of those really good gut bugs so that they can help you to produce brain chemistry to keep your immune system healthy and safe. And a good way to feed those good bugs is to have lots of fiber and whole grains. And those break down into what you call prebiotics. So these beneficial bacteria that help us just stay healthy, they need to feed on something as well. So the more veggies and whole grains and things like that we can eat, the better they will be in the right numbers to help us thrive. Next is balanced nutrition helps us with our emotional health. And I kind of just love this picture of this lady eating this sandwich because she looks so happy. And that's how, I look when I'm eating something I really like. But 75% of eating is emotional. And I always used to say that, all eating is emotional. I'm happy, I'm eating this. I'm sad, I'm eating that. Like it's very, very normal to eat as a way to express yourself or to cope with feelings or to express feelings, right? It's really important to be aware of that though, right? Because it can turn into a cycle of using our food and using our food choices to avoid processing emotions. So the most important thing we can do if we feel like we're in a cycle of emotional eating is to take a break and acknowledge how we're feeling, right? And that takes practice, and that is a routine, right? Is just like before you reach for nearly anything is, okay, I am feeling happy, so I'm going to have this, celebration piece of cake. But if it's like, I'm feeling frustrated, it's a really common way to deal with stress is to eat something that'll make us feel better, because eating makes us feel better. That's why they call it comfort food. That's why we call, sugary foods kind of give you a rush of dopamine that just makes you happy. So it's a common way to manage how we're feeling. But if we make sure that we are surrounded by foods that are healthy for us, that'll help us build healthy brain chemistry and improve our mood and our emotions, then more likely when we're having these emotions and wanting to do something about it, we're going to reach for something that's going to be beneficial for us. So you want to practice mindful eating, where before you eat something, you take stock of how you're feeling in your body. You do a little bit of a body scan, like, my body feels healthy and strong, or I have a pain here, or I'm feeling anxious right now. And you can just kind of give yourself a little bit of a review of your systems, and then make sure that what you're eating is something that you're choosing to nourish your body, not something that you're using to numb a pain or just to change your brain chemistry. So the awareness is a really important place to start. And creating a routine. We're unlikely to eat in more of an emotional pattern if we know that, a certain time of day is when we have our meals. We have breakfast at this time, snack at that time, lunch, and so on and so forth. So you're less likely to feel hungry in between those times when you eat more regularly, and then less likely to eat emotionally as well. And like I said, choosing healthy foods and fortified foods. So we want to have foods that are fortified with vitamin D, which often lots of cereals are. Things that have vitamin C, omega-3 rich foods, because they're going to help us balance our brain chemistry and therefore balance our emotions. And we'll talk a little bit more about routines around food as well when it comes to eating emotionally. But having balanced nutrition makes it less likely for us to eat emotionally and more likely for us to choose foods that are going to help us balance that brain chemistry. Okay. We can also use food as medicine. And this is an important way to start to look at food differently and interact with food differently as well. Because there's so many of the foods that we eat that really can improve every system in the body if we just know what to look for. So here's a list of different foods that can be used as medicine. We'll start with mushrooms, right? So mushrooms are high in vitamin D, but then there are like more sort of medicinal mushrooms, reishi and shiitake mushrooms, and which you can get dried often or you can get them fresh, but they are really great at boosting the immune system and reducing inflammation in the body. So it can help you prevent or fight diseases. Whole fruits in general, but I'm a big fan of citrus because citrus can help you, one, improve your mood. Even just the smell of citrus improves the mood. It's a great anti-inflammatory, and it's my go-to. Citrus, oranges, I mean, however you like citrus, is my go-to for allergies as well, because it keeps the cells in the body that produce the histamine that gives us allergic reactions, it keeps them from exploding and releasing histamine throughout the body and causing symptoms like itchy eyes and itchy nose, itchy throat. So the more citrus you have, the more vitamin C in particular, the less likely that's going to happen. So that helps improve your immune function. We talked about probiotics and beneficial bacteria that help, immune system, hormone function, omega-3s. The other thing I didn't mention about omega-3s, other than just building like nervous system health and improving brain health, is that they also help to regulate hormones. So a lot of times with women and young girls who are having premenstrual issues, I have them take lots of omega-3s around their cycle, but kind of all the time, because it keeps inflammation down, and some of those symptoms would also be resolved by having omega-3s in their diet. Turkey is a good source of protein, but it also is a good source of tryptophan, which is an amino acid that helps us make serotonin, which is our neurotransmitter of feeling well. So it's really important to just pick and choose and be selective about the types of proteins that we eat too. Spinach and dark leafy greens are such great sources of vitamins and minerals. So it's really important to take advantage of those that are part of our culture as well. I mean, I have lots and lots of collard greens all the time, and it's easier to, kind of quickly stir fry those as well. And you can get spinach as well, like frozen. Actually, spinach has a higher nutritional content frozen than it does fresh. So, adding it into a smoothie or having just the leaves in a salad with, some walnuts and maybe some cranberries, that kind of thing, something simple, but they help a lot. And those are fantastic sources of vitamins and minerals. Garlic and ginger are my go-tos as well for colds and flus. They're great antimicrobials, so they help you fight infections, and they're really great, especially ginger, for digestion. Apple cider vinegar is great too for stomach aches, or if you're having lots of digestive issues, even just like a little bit of apple cider vinegar and some hot water with some lemon, even with ginger and garlic, that kind of thing, can be really helpful to, kind of kill bad bugs in the gut and improve the balance of beneficial bacteria versus non-beneficial bacteria in the gut. And also helps with digestion because it's a bit acidic. So it helps you break down your food and digest better too. Honey is a great antimicrobial. Even if you have a sore throat, you can take just a teaspoon of honey and it'll help calm that. And turmeric is also a wonderful and a really powerful antimicrobial. So it helps to fight infection. It's anti-inflammatory. So it helps with joints, aches, and pains as well. What else about turmeric? It's anti-cancer. It's preventative of cancer. Helps to keep blood sugar balanced and blood pressure balanced. Like it's incredibly potent anti-inflammatory, and you can get it as just a spice and sprinkle it on foods, or make curries with it as well. Steel cut oats are great because they are fantastic for, they're a great source of fiber, and they're fantastic for reducing cholesterol too. So even just a bowl of oatmeal in the morning can make a big difference. I do warn you that with oatmeal, sometimes it's more of like a carbohydrate, and it can kind of increase your blood sugar and bring it down again. So what I often recommend is adding some oil to it, or adding some nut butter as well. So then you get some protein and some fat, and then it is a real like slow burn. It's unlikely you'd be too hungry after that because it's so nutrient dense. Cinnamon is great too because it's great for blood sugar. It helps you to manage blood sugar, and it's something that I often recommend for people who are pre-diabetic or diabetic to help them keep blood sugar under control. And then salmon, even canned salmon, is a great source of omega-3s. Beans are a great source of fiber for sure to help bring down cholesterol too, and so are chia seeds. So great sources of fiber and great anti-inflammatories. So that's, I mean, sort of like a quick list of foods that really can be used as medicine. Okay, so we're gonna have a fueling the family plan. So there's so many things we can do to help fuel our families, but a lot of it just requires us being strategic, right? So the first thing we're going to want to do is create a culture and ritual and routines around food in our families. It's just so common that we get really busy. You know, we're rushing from here to there. We are throwing snacks in the backpack. We're forgetting to eat it all, but it makes a very, very big difference to create a culture in our families around food where we start to shift to eating meals together. Even if it's a couple of meals a week, there's statistics that show that it's protective for kids and their mental health. They're much less likely to have anxiety, depression, other mental health concerns if they eat meals with the family a few times a week. So I want to encourage everyone, invite you to make a routine in the family where you eat breakfasts together. And I know that's kind of a busy time, even if that's not the one that you eat together, but everyone should be eating a really substantial nutrient dense breakfast. And that one I want to focus on for everyone, but especially for our kids, because if you are sent off to school without having had enough breakfast then, or just like more of like a sugary breakfast, and this happened to me a lot growing up, is we'd have like a bowl of cereal and run out the door. But somewhere around like 9 o'clock, I would just be so sleepy and tired. And when I'm sleepy and tired, it's really hard to focus. It's really hard to, control yourself and make the best choices. And that's at any age, but especially for our kids, because they don't always have all the skills and the self-awareness to do that. Something as simple as making sure that breakfast is really nutrient dense can prevent that and help them focus better in school and learn better, and just set them up for better success over time. So breakfast is really, really important. And again, developing those routines, if it's like sitting together and saying grace, having conversations that are nourishing during meals. What else? Sometimes we'll go around the table and just say, what was really good today? So now you're not just like nourishing your body, but you're also nourishing your relationships with each other. And everyone feels that connection with the family too. So I want to encourage you to start there. That's a way to start fueling the family with food that is very nourishing and nutrient dense, but also an experience on a regular basis that's very nourishing. And you want to also focus on balanced meals and snacks. So we know what balance looks like. It's just that combination of proteins, healthy fats, vegetables, and complex carbs or whole foods. But you want to do that frequently, right? So you want to start in the morning, so within an hour, to eat something that's nice and balanced that way. But then every 2-3 hours, have a snack. And it doesn't need to be something elaborate. It doesn't need to look or feel fancy. It could just be a handful of nuts and some dried fruit. And that gives you fats and proteins and some complex carbs. And even if it's 1 or 2 handfuls and you keep it in a baggie at your desk, or you keep it in a little container in a lunchbox, it makes a big difference so that blood sugar doesn't go down. And then you start to have those symptoms of hypoglycemia that can make it really hard to function and to think for a longer period of time. So I'd say every 2 or 3 hours to have another little snack here and there, something little. And the thing about that is sometimes people say, oh, I don't want to eat too much. But we have to remember that our bodies are like, they're like engines, right? Like we need to fuel our bodies. And if you don't, then it'll try and find resources elsewhere, right, within the body. And then you're not breaking down exactly what you need to and digesting the way that you need to. But also our bodies are meant for survival. So if you skip this meal here and skip that meal there, it often makes it harder for your metabolism to work properly. It's because your body will say, well, we ate at 8, but then it's 4 p.m. now. So anything that comes through these lips and, through this digestive tract, I'm going to hold on to every single last bit of it. It makes it harder to maintain a healthy body composition because now your body doesn't know when the resources are coming next. So you kind of develop a trust with your body when you eat on a regular schedule. It's like, oh, we ate at 8, we use that, we process it and we move on. And then your metabolism is working more efficiently. Your body can process, you maintain a healthy body composition that way. So eating frequently makes a very big difference for your mental health and for your body health. Everybody eats out sometimes, but we want to make sure that we're choosing healthier options when we eat out. So we want to avoid deep fried foods, fatty foods, high sugar foods, that kind of thing. And choose, like fresh vegetables as much as possible, grilled food as opposed to fried food. That makes a big difference too. Cooking together makes a really big difference too, especially with kids, because then they feel, especially if you have a picky eater, they feel invested in the process, right? It's like, oh, I went to the grocery store with, mom or dad or auntie, and I picked out this one vegetable we're going to try out tonight. And I, looked up how to prepare it, or I helped cut. All those things invest your family, especially the kids, more in the process. It's bonding for sure to cook together, but then you're more likely as a kid to try something out if you help pick it out and you looked into how it's supposed to be done and you have this this physical experience of the food even before you eat it, and you start to develop an appreciation for the food in a different way as well. So cooking together is a really big deal and a beautiful way to develop a culture around food in your family. And then growing food together. And I would say that even if it's just like a little potted plant, like a little basil plant or a little, rosemary or something like that, a little bit of an herb that you can point to, we're going to put this in our pasta sauce or tomato sauce tonight, and something that you can nurture together that also develops, I'm getting a lot of light here, that also develops a culture around food where everyone is invested, and you're also nurturing and growing the food that is going to nurture and grow you. And now you have a different experience of your food. And then being strategic. Hold on a second, it's getting really bright. There we go. Being strategic means that we don't have to do it all ourselves, right? And you don't have to do it all every single night. I hate cooking every night. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of planning. So what I often will do is just get some food, some beans, and throw in a crock pot, just some dried beans and throw in a crock pot, and then add it to different, meals throughout the week. And then you have some fiber, some protein, you're good. Or just make like a big meal in a crock pot once or twice a week, and then just eat leftovers. Befriend leftovers. It's really important to just have something that you can grab that you don't have to cook all the time. And doing weekly meal planning as well. I have to admit that I'm not great at this, but I do make sure that we have like a list of things that we need in the house as staples all the time that are healthy, because Lord knows if I buy cookies and cakes and sweet things, I'm going to eat it all. If I buy it, if it's in the house, I'm going to eat it. So I try to make sure that we keep those things to a minimum, or keep the ones that I know that are going to be rough on everyone out of the house. And just doing even just like a rough planning that week, once a week, to make sure you have everything you need for the meals that you're going to make that week makes a big difference. And then communal meal sharing. If you have a relative or a neighbor, it takes a village to make these things happen, who also is on this journey with you, maybe someone else in the parent group, then saying, we're going to do the veggies for this week. We're going to, prepare the veggies. If you guys do the meats, right? Or if you guys go ahead and buy or prepare or whatnot, like the canned beans or the, canned fish or whatnot. And then that way, the burden isn't just on you and your family, but everyone can kind of gather around creating this culture around fueling your family together. And then self-care for the family, because eating a balanced meal and balanced nutrition is one form of self-care, but there are many forms of self-care, and there are many ways to nourish our families. So on the physical side, and this can kind of also fit on the mental emotional side, but sleep and rest. We often skimp on sleep and rest because we're busy. We have lots that we need to do. We have a lot that's put on as far as responsibilities. But if we don't get enough sleep, I think we think about sleep as like, when I'm tired, I'll sleep. But it's not just about physical rest and replenishing your energy. Sleep is for our brains. When you go to sleep, all the things that happen that day get to be processed, and it goes from one part of the brain to another part of the brain where it can make sense. And then you can kind of move on and fill your brain with more things the next time when you wake up. We don't do that, and it's really hard for our brains to process and the rest of our whole bodies to function. So it's really important to get enough sleep. And that's important actually for heart health too. We find that people who don't sleep enough will have higher blood pressure and worse cardiovascular health risks. So sleep and rest are productive. They're productive for your physical health, but it's also an important way to stay focused and creative and make sure that your mind is poised to function properly. Hydration as well. It's so important to stay well hydrated, and I think we forget that. 70% of the body is 70, maybe 75 is water. We're mostly water. So when we're dehydrated, and it doesn't take very long to get dehydrated, we can start to have symptoms of mental health issues, right? So feeling anxious, feeling depressed, feeling impatient, nervous, all those things. That can all happen from dehydration. So, and just feeling fatigued as well. So sometimes I saw this little post that said, you're not tired, you're thirsty, you're not fill in the blank, you're dehydrated. And I've seen lots of my patients recently wanting to like drink a big gallon of water, which for some people that is right. For other people, depending on the size of your body, that might be just like way too much water. You really can drink too much water. So you want to go for half of your body weight in ounces. So if you're 100 pounds, you want to have about 50 ounces of water a day. And then another objection I often get is, I'm going to drink that water and I'm just going to, have to go urinate all the time. I'm going to be in the bathroom the whole day because that's too much water. The best way to combat that is to add some electrolyte to your water. So even if it's just the tiniest pinch of salt or a little squeeze of lemon, that helps your body pull in the water into your cells, like into your actual cells that need the water more efficiently. And then you don't end up just kind of peeing it all out. So add a little bit of lemon, a little bit of salt, not so much that you can taste it. You don't want to drink salt water, but that will help your body retain the water in the right places. And going outside, it makes such a big difference to get vitamin D for sure. That helps with our mental health and physical health, because vitamin D helps with your immune system as well. But going outside makes a big difference, because once you're outside, you're probably going to move. It's probably going to help you start to exercise a little bit, even just moving your body. And that's great for your overall health. And exercising, right? Now that you're outside, you might as well do some exercise. And a great time to exercise is before a meal, because that can help you get your digestion kind of revved up and prepared, get your circulation going. So then when you do eat, you're better able to digest the food. So one way to develop like a routine and culture on food might be to say, we're going to eat dinner at 5. Maybe you're having leftovers that won't take very long to cook up or whatnot, or to warm up. Let's just take a walk around the block beforehand, just release the day and come back fresh so that we can sit together as a family and connect and bond. And it's a great way. I mean, just this week, I told a patient of mine who is working from home and kind of works in like a dark basement, because that's what we're all having to do right now, is figure out how to make it work. But then he goes upstairs and he says his mind is scattered, and his wife is just like, what are you doing? Like, get out of my way, get out of the kitchen, get out of my way. And I recommended to him that after he's done, he needs to just clear his mind. So leave the house, take a walk, come back, take off your, working hat and put on your husband and father hat, and then come home. Even though you've been home, leave the house, come home. It's just a great way to clear your mind. And it's a great way to take care of yourself too, so that you can be present for the people that you love. And then for mental emotional self-care, there's an important balance between connecting and unplugging, right? Like everyone needs some time to themselves, but then you want to make sure you make time to connect with all your family members. And sometimes it's all together as a family. Sometimes it's just with your daughter. Sometimes it's just with your son. Sometimes it's just with your partner. But that connecting makes a big difference, because then when you do all come together, you've brought your best selves, right? You've spent time building relationship with yourself, right? You get a little bit of time, maybe you take that walk, or you do a little bit of journaling, you take some breaths, you take some deep breaths, and you just, come back to yourself. But then you're able to bring your best self to your family members when you're able to do that. And then unplugging is just like unplugging from, either everything that's going on, all the distractions, taking breaks, but also unplugging from devices, right? Like our brains are getting rewired for this like instant scroll gratification of seeing things and having this constant sort of stimulation. So the more that we can unplug and develop more rest, the better. And then social support is super important too, to make sure that we are around people that we care about, that love us, and who can support us in our choices. Not everyone is going to want to support this sort of lifestyle where you're, choosing foods very intentionally and choosing not to eat certain things that are, often in family gatherings or community gatherings. So you want to be around people who also want to go on this journey with you, and people that you care about, people that you enjoy, in relationships that really nourish and build you up, but also your family. Spirituality is really important too. Whatever your spiritual practice is, or your family's spiritual practice, to really showcase that and to make it something that is talked about and is practiced together. And it can look anyway. Some people go to church, some people go to mosque, some people pray on their own, some people go out into the wilderness, some people dance, some people, whatever it is for you, making sure you connect with that on a regular basis. Some people journal, some people sing. There is spiritual practices as many as there are people, but ways that you connect with what is beyond yourself, a higher power, is just really important, because it fills you up. And then, of course, getting mental health support and counseling when you feel like you've done everything that you can. You need ongoing professional support, someone who can give you that perspective and help you kind of grow in your journey for mental health, but also your own self-care. Super important. And then some more heart health tips. Basically everything we have said: eating a balanced diet, taking care of yourself, exercising, all those things are going to improve your heart health. But also you want to make it fun, and you want to hit certain targets. So for movement, you want about 150 minutes of movement a day. So that's like 30 minutes 5 times a week. But that doesn't have to be like, you being on the clock and putting the shoes on and begrudgingly going out to do something. It can be, moving furniture. It can be going out and doing errands. It can be throwing your kids up in the air. It can be a game of tag at the park. It can be anything that just gets your circulation going and moves your body. So you want to aim for about 150 minutes a week. You want to play. So important for the heart to play. You want to laugh. Those things are, I think, not at the focus when you think about heart health and how to improve cardiovascular health. But there is such thing as a broken heart. There is such thing as needing that connection with yourself and the people that you love. And the best way to do that is to play and to laugh. It helps us learn, it helps us grow, and it quite literally helps the heart to function properly. And then digging into a hobby or a passion as well. That's good for the heart. It's really good to have causes and interests that bring you alive, because it changes your brain chemistry and your body chemistry in a way that will reduce inflammation and reduce those risk factors for heart conditions. But then also make a plan, make it fun, but make a plan. So you want to make sure you get to your annual physical, go every year, take the kids every year. When they're little, it's like every few months, and then it's like every year, but you want to go ahead and get that blood pressure check, get your cholesterol checked, and know your family history too, especially people of color. You know, I know in my family and so much of our communities, there's high blood pressure, there's stroke, there's high cholesterol, diabetes as well. So you need to know your family history so that you know what to keep an eye on and for your doctors to keep an eye on too. You want to manage stress. So many of the things we talked about by way of self-care will help you do that. But even just like taking breaks and breathing makes a big difference, and just naming it, you know, finding a time during the day to acknowledge this is how you're feeling and say, I'm feeling stressed. Sometimes even just that can diffuse some of the feelings and emotions and then help you cope better as well. And then another one that you don't hear about very often is oral hygiene. If we don't have our oral hygiene and as part of our health care plan in general, then it can very quickly turn into cardiovascular disease, because so many of the basically bugs, there's so many bugs that live in our mouths. If we have inflammation in our gums that is not taken care of by regular, by yearly cleanings and regular, flossing and brushing, then they can find their way into the bloodstream and contribute to damage to the arteries and blood vessels and contribute to cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, things like that. So it's really, really important to maintain oral hygiene to minimize cardiovascular disease problems. And then, of course, avoiding and limiting alcohol, which is basically just sugar, deep fried foods, which will contribute to high cholesterol and more of the bad cholesterol. Sugar, again, the more that we have in excess, the more it's stored as fat and bad cholesterol. And then excess salt as well, because the more salt you have, the higher the blood pressure will be. So you want to, the more we cook for ourselves, the more we can control how much salt we have in our diets. And that is our presentation. So I hope you've gotten some tips. You did, I think, get a worksheet with, places where you could fill out some of your top 3 takeaways on some of the sections that we talked about, on how a balanced diet impacts mental and emotional and physical health, how you can use food for medicine, and a self-care plan for yourself. I mentioned various things that you can do as an individual, but also things that you can do for your family, things you can do with your family, creating that routine and culture around food, that a nourishing routine for the whole family, and also some heart healthy habits that you can start to practice, and fun ones as well. So hopefully you've written all those things down so that they stay at the top of your mind. And I've got some resources for us, and you should have these slides as well. But if you click on each one of these, there is the leaves over here are to a wellness plan that I'm offering for our audience here today, where you can go on and you can enroll, and it's 7 days of sort of like a detox, there's a detox drink that you can make with apple cider vinegar and honey and turmeric. And I've done it myself, and I noticed like a huge difference. So I wanted to offer it for us today, and it gives you some recipes as well. And it's based on intermittent fasting, where you, I think, start eating at 11 or something like that. I don't recommend that for everyone all the time, but if you need just like a little bit of a cleanse or a detox, it's great to do for about 7 days and then get back on your regular frequent meals. But all the details are there, and you can log in and enroll. And then there's a guide to healthy nutrition, and that's what the avocado will take you to on these slides. And it gives you some more information on how to read labels properly, and different general ideas that we talked about in this presentation. And then I'm also offering our audience the complimentary consults with me. If you have some ideas that you want to talk about and just kind of brainstorm what would work for you and for your family, I'm more than happy to chat with you. So you can click on that, and I'd be happy to connect.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mee. I actually had some people reach out to me for some just general questions if you have some time, but I didn't know if you wanted to share the plan that you were discussing. I really, when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, this would really be beneficial to my family to kind of help them balance their nutrition. And it's almost kind of like a treatment plan for your family. Did you want to share that and show them what that looked like?
Sure,
And
yeah,
I
I
can
think I
also
can
share
go
it
back.
too.
Hold on.
Okay.
If I can go back, then I might be able to go
Okay.
to it. Yeah. So when you click on that little, wellness leaf, or even on your worksheet on the bottom right, it'll say free wellness plan access. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a 7-day reset, and it's based on intermittent fasting, and you can kind of do that however works for you, right? Like often you can fast until maybe 10 or 11 in the morning. Some people can make it until noon. And then you eat for an 8-hour window. So from 11 to 7, and you're not limiting the foods that you eat. So you're not eating like a bird between that time, like you're eating normal portions, but then
Mm-hmm.
you extend your fast from that 7 o'clock all the way to 11 the next morning. And what that does is it gives your body like a real rest. Like when we eat nonstop, our body never gets a chance to stop digesting. So it gives you a bit of a break, your body a break. And there've been some really amazing benefits from like brain health and digestive health and mood health. So it can help a lot with those things. But it's a great detox, especially if you pair it with this detox drink. And on the very first page, you'll see the recipe for it, which will help to kind of shift gut bacteria to healthy bacteria. It's a great anti-inflammatory. It actually
Mm-hmm.
tastes pretty good too. And you just do that for the 7 days. I don't recommend longer than that. It gives you recipes. Yeah. So every day you'll have like 2 or 3 recipes for each meal. And you're doing like 3 meals. So it'll give you a recipe for each one. And if you go on your desktop, you can print out a grocery list as well. So you can pick out the recipes you want and print out a grocery list. So you take it and you'll have everything you need to make those recipes. And it's just kind of a fun way to get your family involved in trying new things. If I ever kind of get in a rut, I'll get some new recipes and like, oh, okay, I can cook. This tastes good. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then add it to our rotation. So it's an opportunity to just, try something novel and fun with food, but do it in a way that is really going to kind of reset your body. And I've just seen people get some really amazing results within those 7 days, like with their body composition, with their mental clarity, feeling
Definitely.
stronger. So yeah, I just would love it if some of you guys did it. And there's also like an online group that we host as well. So if this group wants to do it together, then I would be more than happy to kind of help moderate and answer questions in the group too. And within the program, once you enroll, there's a link. So if you all wanted to get started in the same day or the same, within the same days, then you can kind of share the experience with each other as well.
Awesome. We will definitely make sure to share that information as well. And you can also email us if you're interested in a worksheet or other additional information. We also sent out the success worksheet that you also shared that we'll still send out to just all of our parents, just because I think that's a very helpful tool. So feel free to email us at info@smiletherapyservices.com if you are interested, but we will be emailing this out as well because it's just such vital information. One of the questions I got from one of my parents just was around, you mentioned snacking, and I struggle with this as well. When you get to the toddler stage and you're trying to find the sufficient amount of snacks that aren't full of sugar and the juices that aren't full of sugar, but we know that sometimes at that age they get to the point where they only want bread or they only want chips or fries or nuggets. So what is your suggestion to parents who are just struggling with just, kids being exposed to just the nuggets and fries and all of that? What is your feedback for that? That would be
Yeah.
really helpful.
Well, I know exactly what that's like. It's just to try and figure out how to get this food into this child. But I would just say to have available all the healthy things you'd like them to try, right?
Yeah.
Just have it. I have one patient who has just like a snack shelf that their toddler at the time had accessible to them. And it would be all stuff that she felt fine with him going and eating as much of as possible. So, just having things accessible for them that are easy and that would be, healthy is a great way to do it. And this is to keep offering, right? Like you can't force anyone to eat anything. It's the thing that I've realized over the past, several years of parenting. You can't force people to eat things, but you can just keep offering it. Like, oh, you don't want avocado today? Let's try it tomorrow. Oh, you don't want, yogurt today? Let's try it tomorrow. And then just try small amounts too. Like, would you try this one tiny spoon, or add it just on the side of the meal and see if they have it. So just keep offering as an option. It can take up to, I think, 7 times to offer a child something before their palate will get used to it. So just don't give up, keep trying as much as possible. And again, if most of what you have available at home is healthy food, no child is going to let themselves starve. Eventually they're going to be like, I'll eat the tomato. It's like, this is all we've got. I will eat the avocado, or I will eat this whole wheat sandwich, because when that's what's available, that's what your option is. So I just say, as much as possible, keep what's healthy in the house and make that what's available for them. And then, of course, you don't want them, just desperate for treats, because then I feel like that can backfire. So, give them a little bit of what they want and what they like. That's fine. But 95% of what's available is like really healthy stuff. And just don't sweat it. You can't force people to eat, but make available what's healthy for them.
Right. Thank you so much for that feedback. I have one more follow-up question from another parent. One of my parents always complains about really not eating healthy per se, but just the fact that eating healthy can be expensive, and then also having access.
Yeah.
So in the Washington, D.C. area, they definitely coined the phrase of just some areas having food scarcity, where we don't have that much access to some of the healthier food options or choices. So, providing those resources where it's farmers market. I know our grocery store out here, Giant, has done a lot of initiatives around making sure that they provide those available resources to those families in different areas. What do you suggest if you're in an area that maybe you don't have a lot of access to those types of foods? I know there's a lot of different resources through obviously DC government and things of that nature, but just on a holistic standpoint, what do you suggest that how they get access to those things?
Yeah, so knowing the local food banks would be really helpful. And on that worksheet, there are a couple of links to DC area food sources and Maryland area food sources. So you can just click on that and see what's in your area. But then when you go, whether it's a grocery store or to a food bank, to have an idea of the foods that are going to last you the longest. I'm a big fan of canned beans, canned fish.
Me too.
There's so many apples, there's so many foods that are, and one of the lists that I have on that worksheet too are like 44 healthy foods that are less than $1. And it's a greatest list, but there's so many foods that we don't realize that if we go and buy it, it's not that expensive, but it is really healthy. I could probably pull it up. I'm going to pull it up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm looking at it now. Yeah, this is really helpful.
Yeah. I'm going to pull it up so that everyone can see on my sheet too. And where is it? Here. No, now it's gone.
And I can share it as well.
Okay, I think I should be able to open it up for us. Here, I'm just gonna find it in our email. If that's
okay. Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So, this is
So this one is the greatest list. So it's 44 healthy foods under $1. And then it gives you proteins, dairy, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, and drinks that are all under $1. So pinto beans, eggs, almonds, peanuts, chicken breasts, black beans, lentils, garbanzo beans, tofu, pumpkin seeds, oats. Oats are a lifesaver. And then when you combine it with something like peanut butter can be really affordable. And all you do is take like a tablespoon of peanut butter and mix it into your oatmeal. Protein, fat, healthy complex carbs, all done, and it's so cheap. Canned salmon, canned tuna, and even protein. I don't usually do protein, but if you're, don't have a lot of protein, you can get like a huge container of whey protein and add it into oatmeal. You can add it into smoothies, and then you can add it into brownies. You can add it into all sorts of things, and it'll last. And then the other one is the Healthline one. Yeah, 29 healthy foods that are incredibly cheap. So broccoli, onions, bagged spinach. I'm a big fan of frozen spinach because it'll last so long, and it's even higher nutritional value than fresh spinach. Potatoes, right? All sorts of tomatoes, canned potatoes, canned tomatoes, carrots, cabbage. Oh my gosh, cabbage. I mean, if you cut up a cabbage, you get like a lot of food all at once. You don't need, you can only need is like, a handful, a tablespoon, couple of tablespoons. And it's so good for your digestion and so high in vitamins. Squash as well. Rice, like a big bag of rice lasts a really long time. You want to err on the side of brown rice and wash it before, because when you wash it, I think a lot of the arsenic comes off because sometimes rices can have more arsenic. So you wash it and you can make like a huge pot of brown rice and then add it to every meal for the whole week. Again, oatmeals, canned beans, things like that. So there are lots of different ways that you can popcorn, things like that, bananas, apples. So there's a huge list, a couple of lists here where it's like, what am I going to eat and how am I going to afford it? Because that is often a barrier to like, okay, I'm going to eat healthy. It's, $1 for this hamburger at, McDonald's, which is fast and it's easy. But what we don't pay in money, we end up paying for in our health. And once in a while is, of course, fine, but as a lifestyle, it's so much more sustainable to buy a bag of oranges or buy some frozen berries or buy some apples and cut them up and give it to our kids for snacks, as opposed to something that in the long run is going to cause more inflammation and health problems.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mead. You definitely helped me. This is very timely for all of our families. I love the fact that you shared about the frozen spinach. I don't even know why I've been buying fresh spinach all this time. It goes bad so quickly. So I was like, duh, I need to do that. So this was just very timely for everybody, just because we're trying to get fit. It's February. We're going into spring. So this was very, very helpful information. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will definitely be sharing all of the information. We'll be sharing this video and all of the worksheets that you provided, because again, everyone can use it. And yes, I agree, very practical advice. And again, just timely. So thank you so much. And we will be sharing this information again. You can find Smile Therapy Services, www.smiletherapyservices.com. Also, we have a Instagram page, which is Smile Therapy LLC, at Smile Therapy LLC. You can find us there as well. So we will make sure that you guys get this information, because we don't want anyone to miss any of this information. You were awesome and great. So thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, participants and attendees, for joining us. We appreciate you so much. And everyone have a wonderful evening.